You've probably noticed it. When the mind wanders into the future, it rarely drifts towards something peaceful. Instead, it plays horror trailers. The job rejection, the car crash, the illness that hasn't happened, the conversation that goes wrong. Even when life is fine, the brain starts whispering, "What if it isn't tomorrow?" This isn't just anxiety. It's a design feature. Our brains are wired to imagine danger long before it arrives. Because for most of human history, the ones who worried survived. But in the modern world, this survival skill has turned into a psychological trap. We live in relative safety, yet our nervous systems still behave as if every unknown moment is a potential threat. So why do we keep doing this? Why do we need to picture bad outcomes, even when we know it makes us miserable? To understand that, we have to look back to when fear was a form of wisdom. If you're interested in understanding how the mind really works, subscribe and join us for weekly insights. For over 200,000 years, human survival depended on prediction. If you could imagine danger before it struck, you could prepare. You didn't have to be right every time. You just had to be careful. Imagine two hunters walking through tall grass. One hears a rustle and thinks, probably the wind. The other thinks, maybe a predator. If it's the wind, the second hunter loses a few seconds. If it's a lion, the first hunter loses his life. That tiny difference, reacting to a false alarm, kept our ancestors alive. Evolution rewarded the anxious. And slowly, fear became the brain's default lens for the unknown. Modern neuroscience calls this the negativity bias. Our built-in tendency to give more attention, emotion, and memory power to bad outcomes than good ones. It's not moral or emotional, it's mathematical. The cost of underestimating danger used to be death. The cost of overestimating it was just stress. Thousands of generations later, that wiring still runs the show. Only now, the lions aren't real. They're emails, headlines, deadlines, what-ifs. Our brains haven't evolved fast enough to tell the difference between an actual predator and an imagined one. So when you lie awake imagining worst-case scenarios, you're not broken, you're ancient. Inside your head is an extraordinary survival system. When the brain detects uncertainty, a small almond-shaped structure, the amygdala, lights up like a warning siren. Its job is simple. Assume the worst until proven safe. It doesn't need evidence. It only needs ambiguity. That's why vague situations trigger more anxiety than known ones. Your brain would rather face a visible threat than a possible one, because at least with a visible threat, it knows what to do. MRI studies show that when we imagine future events, the brain activates nearly the same regions as when we actually experience them, particularly the prefrontal cortex and limbic system. In other words, the mind doesn't just think about the future, it feels it. The body reacts as if those imagined dangers are happening now. That's why anxiety is so physically exhausting. You're rehearsing survival without ever facing the event. Your pulse quickens, cortisol rises, and focus narrows, all for a future that may never come. Psychologists sometimes call this anticipatory anxiety. The discomfort of what hasn't happened yet is the body's way of saying, prepare. But the preparation never ends, because there's no real threat to complete the cycle. It's like running a fire drill in your head every hour of the day. Alarms blaring, but no smoke, no flames, just a body stuck in readiness. Here's where it gets tricky. Your brain likes imagining negative outcomes, not because it enjoys fear, but because fear gives it something to control. When we picture the worst-case scenario, the brain feels temporarily in charge. It believes that by rehearsing disaster, it's reducing surprise. In reality, it's rehearsing suffering. It's like watching a sad movie over and over just to prepare for the ending. But you still cry every time. That's what we do with our own lives. Psychologist Daniel Gilbert called it the impact bias, our tendency to overestimate how much future pain will affect us and underestimate our ability to cope with it. The brain assumes, if I imagine every outcome, I'll be ready. But life rarely follows the script we write in panic. Ironically, this habit makes us less adaptable, because instead of responding to real situations, we're reacting to mental rehearsals. We live twice, once in thought, once in experience, and both times with fear. Here's the paradox. Calm is unfamiliar to an anxious brain. After years of constant scanning, silence feels unsafe. When nothing's wrong, the mind assumes something must be wrong soon. This is known in cognitive therapy as intolerance of uncertainty, the inability to relax without answers. It's not about pessimism, it's about control hunger. The mind would rather cling to a bad prediction than face no prediction at all. Because I know something bad will happen feels safer than I don't know what will happen. Uncertainty is the true trigger. Fear is just its shadow. That's why many people feel more comfortable expecting disappointment than risking hope. Hope feels fragile, fear feels familiar, and familiarity to the nervous system means safety. So without realizing it, we train ourselves to worry. Each time a feared scenario doesn't come true, the brain still takes credit for preventing it. It says, "See, it didn't happen because you worried enough." And the cycle reinforces itself. That's how worry becomes a ritual, a superstition disguised as strategy. In ancient life, most fear responses were local and immediate: predators, hunger, storms. Today, we live in a global stream of uncertainty: wars, economies, climate, digital noise. Our brains receive more alarming information in a day than early humans did in a lifetime. The amygdala doesn't know the difference between direct threat and abstract information. So each headline, each notification, each what if keeps your nervous system alert. Add to that social comparison, seeing others' curated success online, and the brain fills the gaps with negative self-predictions. They're ahead. I'll fail. I'm running out of time. The system that once saved us now burns us out. We were never meant to simulate 10,000 possible futures before breakfast. When the brain lies, the mind's predictions aren't logical. They're emotional narratives disguised as facts. Cognitive psychology identifies several distortions that fuel this: catastrophizing, imagining the worst possible outcome as the most likely one; fortune-telling, assuming you already know the future; mind reading, believing you can guess others' thoughts or judgments; emotional reasoning, I feel afraid, therefore something bad is about to happen. Each of these keeps the fear loop alive, and because the brain values emotional data over rational data, you can't outthink them with logic alone. You have to observe them without buying into them. That's where mindfulness and CBT intersect. Not to stop the thought, but to stop believing it. To see what if everything goes wrong as simply another neural habit, not prophecy. There's a deeper layer here. Humans need meaning as much as they need safety. When life feels directionless, the brain fills the gap with threat. It's easier to fear something than to face emptiness. In existential psychology, this is known as the anxiety of freedom. When nothing is wrong, we're left with too much choice, too much open sky. The brain anchors itself by imagining danger, because danger gives purpose. Fear feels productive. That's why people sometimes panic after success or calm periods. When the drama stops, the mind says, "Now what?" So it invents new problems, new possible crises. Not to suffer, but to stay oriented. It's not self-sabotage, it's self-direction through fear. But there's another way to create direction, through curiosity. Fear and curiosity both focus the mind. One constricts, the other expands, and both begin with uncertainty. The difference is what you do with it. To break the habit of negative prediction, you can't force positivity. That's just another controller tactic. Instead, you have to update the brain's prediction model through experience. When uncertainty arises, pause and ask, what else could happen besides the worst? The brain hates that question because it opens possibilities. But that's exactly how you weaken fear, by introducing alternatives. Over time, each small moment of uncertainty that ends better than feared becomes new evidence, and the mind, slowly, begins to trust life again. This is how exposure therapy works, not just for phobias, but for everyday anxiety. You let the unknown happen without running mental simulations. You realize you can survive the wait, the ambiguity, the silence, and with repetition, the prediction engine cools down. Mindfulness adds another layer, observing without labeling. When a fearful thought appears, what if it all falls apart? Notice it like a weather pattern. No argument, no suppression, just recognition. Ah, the brain's doing its protection thing again. That small distance between you and the thought is the difference between suffering and awareness. There's one final twist. Fear is chemically addictive. Each time we imagine threat, the body releases adrenaline and dopamine. That mix feels sharp, alive, important. Calm feels dull by comparison. So the mind learns to seek fear for stimulation, not joyfully, but habitually. That's why you check bad news even when it makes you feel worse. Your brain equates fear with relevance. To it, the scariest thought feels like the truest one. But you can retrain this too. Start rewarding calm. Pay attention to moments of safety. The taste of your coffee, a friend's message, the quiet after finishing something hard. Notice them, name them. Let the nervous system learn they matter. Because attention is reward, and what you reward grows. When you repeatedly honor safety, the brain starts craving it more than fear. The amygdala's alarms fade. The prefrontal cortex reclaims command. You stop living from the threat system and start living from awareness. Imagination isn't the enemy, it's the tool. The same neural circuits that predict disaster can also envision calm. When you visualize safety, the body begins to feel it. That's not delusion, it's neuroscience. Studies on guided imagery showed that visualizing peaceful outcomes lowers cortisol and heart rate as effectively as actual meditation. So when the mind starts writing its usual disaster script, interrupt it with a simple rewrite. What if it goes right this time? What if I handle it well? What if nothing happens at all? You don't have to believe those questions. Just ask them. Every time you do, you offer the brain an alternative future to simulate. And with enough practice, the fear-based default loses its monopoly. The goal isn't to eliminate all worry. A small amount keeps us alert, realistic, and compassionate. But the endless craving for negative prediction, that's the leftover instinct of a world far rougher than ours. You can thank your ancestors for it, but you don't have to obey it. The next time your mind plays disaster reels, remember, it's trying to keep you alive, not make you miserable. You can whisper back, "Thank you, I'm safe now." And maybe, for the first time, your brain will believe you. Thank you for listening. If this brought you peace or clarity, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Take care of your mind, and it will take care of you.